Greetings War Thunderers, this is Longshot with you again. In this video I'll be looking at the new Air Domination mode. In fact, it's not actually new, it's been available in custom battles for as long as I can remember, but a few days ago it was added to the arcade rotation as announced in this post on the forums, where it's described as a deathmatch with players fighting each other until the enemy team is destroyed or a zone is captured. This is something that many fighter pilots have wanted for a long time, with the objectives directly based on PvP combat rather than killing AI ground targets or landing on runways. So let's look at the mode in a custom battle. And it's pretty simple, just a capture point between the opposing spawns. With me in this battle are a crowd of biplanes flown by AI pilots, up against more AI biplanes on the other team. I'm the only human in this battle. And looking at the minimap, you can see a large circular shaded zone with the capture point in the middle. When a team starts to cap the zone, it begins to turn the appropriate colour and reverts back to white when it's no longer being capped. As it happens, AIs cannot cap, so I need to fly out of the zone if I don't want the match to end early. Okay, now what I'm going to do is explore and see if I can find the upper and lower boundaries of the zone. Right now I'm flying above the zone, but I'm not capping it, it's still neutral, so I'm above the upper limit. I'll gently dive and see if I can find the actual altitude where the zone begins and ends. Just dropping gently, I don't want to go through it too quickly. And as I go through 4,700 meters, I begin to cap. I'll just ease up out of the zone to confirm that, and it stops capping once I'm past 4,750 meters, so the ceiling is somewhere in that range on this map. Next I'll dive and see if it extends all the way to the ground. With any luck I'll get a shot at a biplane on the way past. Now, there's 4 or 5 Air Domination maps. They're pretty much all the same, just with different scenery. Right, so I'm near the ground, the zone's no longer being capped, so there is indeed a lower limit. I'll just ease the plane upwards and see if I can find it. Past 800 meters and it does cap again. So I'll lower down to confirm. By the way, notice there's no ground targets at all. Yes, there's nothing whatsoever for bombers in this mode. And below 700 meters I'm out of the zone again, so the limit is somewhere in that range. Now there's really an obvious problem here. Why am I having to perform these tests? Because the game doesn't tell me when I've flown too high or too low and exited the zone. The only way I could find that out is by being the only player on my team as I am here, and the vast majority of players will never conduct this test, so they'll never know what the limits are. All they'll see is the zone either being capped or not while they fly around within the shaded area, and they'll assume that because they're within that area as seen on the minimap, they're in the zone and therefore doing the right thing, when the chances are they're not. The capping of the zone won't make sense to most players, and they'll think the mode is broken when it isn't. Its rules are simply hidden and aren't obvious unless you go looking as I've done here. This could be fixed in 2 ways. Firstly, I think the zone should extend all the way to the ground. That lower limit causes real problems, as I'll show in a minute. And secondly, when you're above the top of the zone, it should tell you so with a text message on the screen. Anyway, enough of beating up on AI biplanes. Here's a real air domination battle. And the first thing to note is the spawn isn't as close to the zone as it was in the custom battle, which is definitely a good thing. You don't want people in the zone being able to directly camp the spawn. I'm flying the KI-45 I'm climbing to the side as I usually do. This is my first air dom battle. I have no idea what to expect, but common sense tells me that it'd be better to climb, as winning high altitude superiority should confer a significant advantage in a mode based on air combat. And while I do so, here's another comment. The size of the zone looks great for Tier 1 and Tier 2 planes. For the faster planes in Tier 3, it might become a little cramped, but I imagine it would still be playable. Tier 4 and Tier 5, though, would descend into chaos. For the mode to work in those tiers, the spawns would have to be much further back, and the zone considerably larger. But I bet that's not the case right now. It really is time Gaijin started to think of the gameplay in those higher tiers, and providing maps that suit the needs of faster planes. Not maps based on biplanes. Anyway, as you can see, there's very few enemies that have even kept their spawn height, let alone climbed as I've done. The vast majority have immediately dived to ground level, where they've begun the predictable furball that will rage on for the length of the entire battle. The thing is, because I performed my custom battle test, I know that most of them will be below the floor of the zone. But they simply don't know that. Indeed, they can't know that. So my mission in this battle is therefore not to try and kill all the enemies. It's to stay above the 800 meters limit and kill or force down any red planes that I see above that height, which will be very few indeed in this battle. I try to dive on a BB-1, but he's dived away at the same time. Certainly the cloud isn't helping matters either, as they drive people underneath them in order to be able to see what they're doing. So I'm in the strange position here of circling around above a dogfight, waiting for stray enemies to pick off, and I'm playing the objectives by doing so. Indeed, what kind of fighter pilot would I be if the objectives called for me to keep at least some altitude? And instead I neglected those objectives by diving into a furball. Suddenly I see a P-26 through the cloud. Hope I finally have something to shoot at, but no, he too is diving into the furball. I guess this is simply human nature at work here. The vast majority of War Thunder players, at arcade at least, have no concept of the value of altitude. All they want is quick action and quick kills, and the furball's the place to find that. And so they dive in as quickly as possible. Many never even think to look upwards or even consider that their planes are capable of flying in that direction. And that's why I believe the zone shouldn't have a lower limit. There's no way to stop human nature. Anyway, as I go in for a boom and zoom run, did you notice that my team briefly began to capture the zone? That's because myself and one or two other blue pilots were still up inside the zone, while every single enemy plane was beneath it. Indeed, the highest target I can find here is this F2A, which at 500 meters it's still well under the zone. And he simply doesn't know that. None of them do. Okay, enough about that. Let's look at bombers in this mode. Apart from the occasional bomber that can act as a fighter, they simply have no role to play here at all. The best they can do is dive through the zone and then fly off into the distance, hoping to draw enemies away from it in a kill train. Or alternatively, they could hang out at the top of the zone and hope no one spots them. Neither option will provide any rewards to the bomber pilot in terms of RP or SL. I really don't agree that a mode in the general rotation should totally exclude a subset of planes like this. I'd much rather see ground targets and even mini-bases way off to the sides, well away from the zones, to provide bombers and attackers with something to do, and give fighters a choice as to whether to leave them alone and contest the zone, or go after those bombers and hope the zone isn't capped while they're away. If those ground targets and bases drop the ticket count just a little, then it'd be an interesting dilemma and the bombers would have a way of contributing towards the outcome of the game, without directly deciding it. But as it is, right now, you've got to make sure you have some fighters in your lineup, as bombers are nothing more than free kills. Anyway, back to this battle. My team almost capped the zone again. The only thing stopping us from doing so now is the occasional enemy plane that flies through the zone after spawning, before of course diving under it into the furball. So I'm going on another boom and zoom run because I want to actually shoot something down before the game ends. No one's following me up because not a single player on the enemy team is looking that direction. So in its current form, how do you actually win a game of air domination? Simply by having at least one plane inside the cylinder that forms the zone, while your enemies have none. Doesn't matter if you have 10 planes in the zone and they have just one, a single enemy plane will force the zone to be neutral again. So you can achieve this in two ways. Either shoot all the enemy planes down, or get altitude superiority and, assuming it's not a cloudy map like this one, drive them all down to ground level, in the furball underneath, and kill anything that wants to climb or keep its spawn altitude. Look at them all diving as they fly in from spawn, every single plane. So you just got to get them outside the zone. And the other thing to consider is that this map has a time limit. You can't see it on the general view, you have to look at the stat screen. Right now I'm 6 minutes 30 seconds or so into the battle, and there's about 8 minutes 30 to go, which means a total time limit of 15 minutes. So what happens if that 15 minutes runs out and neither side's cap the zone or run out of planes? The tickets will be at a dead heat because nothing drains them, which means neither team will win, both teams lose. That's why I'm in favour of giving bombers something to do. It'll provide a way for a team to get in front of the ticket count and prevent such stalemates from occurring. And at long last I have something to do as well in this battle. Two bombers have spawned and are entering the zone up at 3,000 meters instead of diving to ground level. I'm the only fighter left up here, so it's up to me to shoot them down. I want to avoid the rear cannon gunner on this H6K. So just going down into a low yo-yo underneath him. Which gives me speed, I can easily catch him up. Right, I do hope that the gameplay I saw on this map is just a temporary thing, that Gaijin will make improvements so that the mode's more understandable, and that players start to value altitude more, as from a fighter's perspective I do believe that it will be the key to winning air domination games. And anyway, with that bomber down, my team again begins to capture the zone, and this time we succeed. From the moment I shot that plane down to the zone being captured, it only took 26 seconds. And it takes another 20, once we've capped, for the tickets to bleed down and the battle to end. And I bet all of those red planes dogfighting on the deck are still wondering why they lost. So yes, this mode has promise, it just needs polish. And I guess we'll have to wait and see what, if anything, Gaijin does to improve it, and if players develop any tactics other than the low altitude furball. Anyway, as those tickets bleed down, that's all I have for you in this video. I hope you find it helpful. Until the next one, I'll see you in the skies.